Hi, this is Chef Gordon Rader from Indian Hills Community College, and welcome to our wine evaluation video. Hopefully be able to provide you with some information on how to come to a better understanding of what it is you're drinking. Some tips to isolate some of the characteristics that we've talked about in the wines that you're drinking to fully appreciate what those varietals offer you. Some things that you're going to need before you start: obviously wine glasses. I have two. A white wine and a red wine. The red wine's larger. It's a burgundy glass to bring more air into the picture, mixing with the wine to bring out those characteristics, those aromas and flavors that we talked about. A corkscrew to get into the bottle. A fancy spittoon. I'm using styrofoam. It was just happened to be there. When you go to a winery, you'll probably have something a little bit nicer. And the reason for that is obviously if you're tasting a lot of wine, the evaluation is going to stop after 3 or 4 bottles unless you spit as you go. So we want to remain coherent throughout this practice. Another thing that's really important before you start out is decide what kind of wine you want to try. You might have something in your mind that you've always wanted to try and haven't, or something you've gone to before and really haven't evaluated it fully. Either use your textbook that we talked about wine, or you can go to the web, and I've got a couple of documents, one on Sauvignon Blanc, which we're going to be using, another on Cabernet Sauvignon, and it talks about the grape, it talks about the characteristics of the wine, and gives you some ideas where it came from, how it's evolved, and that's what you use to go into the wine, open the bottle, pour it, smell, taste, and evaluate, and come back to this and see what kind of characteristics you can identify. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. Now let's go to our wines. I'm going to bring back the Sauvignon Blanc that we had in the last video. This is a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc from Wither Hills. It's really nice. And we're also going to be talking about a Cabernet Sauvignon this time. So we have one white and one red. And it's nice to start with the lightest and work to the heaviest. So let's go by first talking about opening the wine. Now we've got corkscrews, and a lot more wines you're going to see today have screw caps, and that doesn't really affect the quality of the wine. As a matter of fact, it's easier to store these. There's something about the mystique of cork, but with cork being a natural product, bark from a tree, and everybody's going green now, they're talking about, I think that a lot more wines are going to go to synthetic corks, glass corks, or screw caps, and this doesn't mean anything at all. This is a great wine, and it's a great bargain at $15. So obviously the opening was easy on this one. So we're going to get our white wine glass. We're going to pour just a little. Okay. And now go back and look and try to find the smells and our flavor elements to this particular wine. We're also going to swirl the glass a little bit. That's going to allow some air to get in there, some oxygen to interact with the wine, and those aromas and flavors are going to start to wake up and come out. Herbaceous, and we talked about that before. Hay, straw, there's some vegetal to it, bell pepper, green olive, there's some fruit, grapefruit, lime, citrus. So let's see if we can identify any of these things. Put your nose right in, don't be afraid to do that, and inhale. It smells really bright, really crisp, acidic. And I'm getting a lot of citrus there too. And there's some melon going on as well. And see if you can jog your memory a little bit about flavors and aromas right off the bat, because that's where everything happens really. You've got 4 tastes, 5 if you count umami, but the aromas, I mean, you can identify thousands and thousands of different things through the aroma factor. Definitely lime, heavy on lime. So now we're going to go ahead and taste. This time as we taste, we're going to just bring a little bit into our mouth and try to breathe in some air as we do it. So that's going to interact with the liquid itself, and then we're going to chew. And you know, it's great when you go to a wine tasting. If you're by yourself, it's one thing, but when you go to a wine tasting, you see everybody else doing it, you don't feel quite so goofy. I mean, that's just a common thing. Not to feel goofy, but to chew. and then spit. Of course, I always cheat a little bit. I swallow some of it. It's great. Really nice wine. A lot of fruit, acid, really a lot of citrus in that. And you just go back. Did I get melon? Did I get lime? Did I get grapefruit? Gooseberry, lemongrass? And there's a whole list of things, characteristics that you can find on the web, your textbook, to help you verify that. It's very acidic. It's slightly dry. It dries out your tongue a little bit. Really nice wine. So let's go to our next wine. I have to make this video quick because they're too big to upload to YouTube. This is our Cabernet Sauvignon. This one does have a cork, so we're going to go through the process of opening that up. You want to remove the foil first. There's a small knife on your corkscrew that you're just going to go around the top lip of the bottle, and then take the knife and move it up, and then you'll be able to remove the foil. Well, I wasn't as clean on that as I should have been, but now you're going to take the worm, you're going to insert it into the top of the cork with a few screws, and then we're just going to move it up and then slowly nudge it out. No big pops. Now with the bigger, bolder wines, I usually like to open off a little bit before, give them some time to aerate. And so we're going to, again, swirl that around. Bring your paper into the mix, your textbook, and look. We're looking for black currant, blackberry, black cherry. There's some ginger, peppercorn, oak. And this is oak. In other words, it's been aged in some oak barrels. And let's see what we can come up with here. Definitely cherry, strong cherry smell. Blackberries. I can tell there's some oak in there. Definitely a lot of oak, but you can find that in Cabernet Sauvignons because they're obviously aged. It smells really good. Wow. Really good wine. A lot of cherry. Definitely some bell pepper in there. That's one of the things they talk about. Peppery. And it's dry. Very astringent. The tannins in red wines are the things that give that astringency that comes from the pips and the skins of the grape. And what's great about that, though, is when it interacts with your meal. Every time that you take a sip of wine like this, it cleanses the tongue, and you bring the next bite of food into play, and you get the full flavor from that morsel. And so it's one thing to try it by itself, and I enjoy it by itself. It's great, but when you pair it up with food, that's an amazing thing. And that would be the next step, is to actually try to figure out what it is. Look at the suggestions from your textbook, look at the suggestions from your wine book or your wine information that you've downloaded from the web, and then start actually pairing it up with food. 1 or 2 wines a week over the course of the month, so you can become really very savvy on wine. And really, I think the food end of it, when you're combining the two together, that's the important part. That's where you get hooked. That's where I got hooked. I remember there was a time that I didn't want anything to do with wine. I didn't like how it tasted. And then somebody said, well, let's try it with a meal and see what you think next. And that's the ticket right there. And I think that's the big change, that got to try it out, have some food with it, and see how the interplay really creates an incredible meal. So, this is the short version of our wine evaluation video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made some sense. And that's going to pique your curiosity, and you're going to go out and buy a couple of bottles and have dinner, have some friends over. Thanks.